So, I realized that I really haven't done a get to know me since being on YouTube. I started YouTube in 2022. I started YouTube because one, my community and my circle and my tribe, they were like, girl, we want to see behind the scenes. You can do more. You can do long form content. You have something to say. And I remember I started off working on this dress. It was for a friend of mine. I was doing their daughter's prom dress, and now she's like all grown up. I'm like, I'm getting old. But I started YouTube to show that process, and I wasn't as consistent. But I was like, I think I like this. I think I'm gonna get more into this. But me starting YouTube, I didn't know that it would kind of cause me to bloom in a way that I really didn't expect or see coming. So, I think I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my journey and most importantly, my testimony. I may get emotional, I may not. So, if you don't want to see emotions, goodbye. If you do, hello. So, I fell in love with fashion design at 10 years old. We had just moved to Atlanta from Florida. I'm originally from Florida, and my mom was working in corporate America. She was an executive. I think she was doing medical coding and billing, but that's neither here nor there. She was working in corporate America, and I remember I was 10 years old. It was the summer of '05, and I stayed up the whole night. I was like, you know how kids, they like, oh, I stayed up the whole night. I stayed up the whole night, and I walked into my mom's room, and I seen her get dressed. I was watching her literally lay out her clothes for the day. She had a pixie cut at the time before she got a fade. She was doing her hair. She was pulling out her jewelry, matching her shoes. Like, it was so intentional with what she wore. So I was just in awe watching her. And then at the time, how her room was set up, she had her bed, she had an ottoman at the foot of her bed, and then she had like a Chester across from her bed with like a TV that you would close the door. Y'all remember them Chesters where you open the door and you put the TV in, then you close the door? Baby, you had money if you had one of them, okay? If you know, you know. I always wanted one of them when I was younger until I got older, and it just ain't my style. But back then, you had money if you had one of them. So at the foot of her bed, on her ottoman, she had different magazines. I remember seeing Jet magazine, Essence magazine, and I want to say it was either Elle. It was another black magazine. I can't remember, but I remember seeing three magazines, and I remember saying to myself, I'm gonna make clothes for me and my mom to be on the cover of these magazines. And ever since then, I said, Mama, I want to be a fashion designer. Y'all ever seen that movie, Mama, I Want to Sing? Like, that's how I feel every time I tell this story. But I was like, Mama, I want to be a fashion designer. And my mom is the type of person that when you say something and you keep saying it, she's going to invest into it. She's going to take it seriously. She's going to use whatever she can do, gather whatever resources she can gather to make sure she put it all in you. And I was so serious to the point when high school graduation came about, I was like, if I can't go to school for fashion, I may do something strange for a little piece of change. Don't judge me. I wasn't being serious about the second part, but I wanted her to understand how important it was for me to pursue fashion design. Now, this is where I wasn't prepared, or I necessarily didn't know what was in store. And I don't think anybody could have warned me of this. So, with me wanting to pursue a career in fashion design, I always thought the women the models, the designers, everything that I saw related to fashion, like, to me, it was synonymous with the word beauty at that time when I was younger. But when I was younger, I was very, very, very insecure. I was very insecure with my external looks, with my complexion, with the way that I looked. Like, I was very insecure, and I was bullied a lot because of the complexion. So I would often ask God, like, why is it that someone with so many insecurities has such a strong desire to be in this industry? And the way that I fell in love with fashion, I knew it wasn't about the beauty. It was just something about the intentionality behind watching my mom put together an outfit. And that drew my attention. That drew me in. Around that time when I was getting ready to go to college, my mom made it work. We ended up going to LA. She took me to LA. I went to fashion school in LA. I said, I want to go to LA. I want to become a world-renowned fashion designer. But no one tells you that that comes with a process, okay? It doesn't happen overnight, okay? Little naive me at 17 just knew it was gonna happen like that, but it didn't. But luckily, good things still happen. So we went to LA, and I didn't know that at the time, my mom really couldn't afford to send me to LA. So luckily, we were blessed to have a landlord who was like, don't worry about rent this month. Take your daughter to college. This is how God slowly began to reveal himself in this journey of my life. Like, this is how I knew me wanting to be a designer at 10 years old wasn't just about me wanting to be a designer. It was literally God's thumbprint throughout this entire journey. And that's kind of what I want to, that's why I want to tell you guys about my story a little bit. It's not just a get to know me for a video, but really like for you to understand that God is real. God is beyond real. He is intentional. You can see him in every detail. If you take time to just stop and look at the points that come together in your life. So back to the story. We end up going to LA. She drops me off. When I get to LA, I start crying because I'm like, Mama, I could have stayed in Tallahassee for this. I could have stayed in Florida. This wasn't what I thought. Little naive me thinking I was going to see what I saw on TV. And eventually I did, but I think I'm glad I went through the process of crying and not liking LA when I first got there, because it helped me put some things into proper perspective and helped me realize like, okay, this isn't about fame. It isn't about fortune. You love to create. So now you're here to learn. That is the mindset I slowly began to develop at 17 going on 18. And I ended up just getting focused. I ended up getting an internship in production. I ended up getting an internship with a showroom that sold handbags. I ended up learning the buying side and the sales of how things go from production to department stores or to small boutiques. I learned that entire process through an internship for my entire duration of college while I was in school studying to be a designer. So fast forward to the time for me to graduate college. I'm trying to figure out what it is to do next. And I'm rushing through this story because there's a main part that I want to get to. I'm trying to figure out what to do next when it comes to school, when it comes to my career. I'm looking for jobs. I'm putting together my portfolio. But something just wasn't clicking. I didn't know that at the time. It was just time for me to move. Like my season in LA was up at that moment. And I didn't want to accept it. So when graduation came and I went back to Florida, I was depressed, and I didn't realize I was depressed until maybe about 2 years being back in Florida. So I moved to LA in 2012. I moved back to Florida in December of 2015, right before Christmas. Completed college, whatnot. And when I got back, my mom gave me 3 months to just relax. Don't worry about looking for a job, just relax. But for me, she didn't realize like, it isn't even about looking for a job. I think what hit me was the reality of what happens after college. That you have all these dreams, all these goals, and then reality hits. Especially when you're in a non-traditional career path, it kind of hits you like a ton of bricks. You don't know what to do. And especially when you felt like you had your whole life planned at 10 years old. Girl, you 10. You don't know nothing. So I'm sitting there for 3 months just going with the flow, trying to connect with old friends that I still had, but something just, it wasn't clicking. It was missing. And my mom told me, she said, she calls me Jess. She said, Jess, I don't care if you just have to draw squares and circles on a piece of paper. I need you to keep going with your creativity. Keep going, don't stop. And then when she said that, I took her advice. And then something said, why don't you just put on your own fashion show and you highlight people that you met in LA, see if they want to come, find some designers here in Tallahassee, do it for domestic violence awareness because unfortunately I did kind of a certain period of my life. I did grow up in a DV household. Um, but I did that for 2 years. I did a fashion show in 2016, produced a fashion show in 2017. Beautiful, but something still wasn't clicking. It was something still felt empty of it all. So then after 2017 show happens, um, I told my mom, I was like, I remember she came home from work. I was still living with my mom at this time. She came home from work and she went to the bathroom. Now, what I'm about to say, I need you to clutch your pearls because if you are a parent, then I can only imagine what your facial expression will look like after I say this. So she comes home, she goes into the bathroom, she set up her dining room. She gave me a space to just sew out of. And I'm sitting in that space and I just felt like a lot of emotions come up and I was unsure of what was coming up. So I went into the bathroom. I told my mama, I said, you need to get off the phone because I need to talk to you right now. Now, context, I believe I was 22, maybe 23. It don't matter. But the point is, we going somewhere. Just, she was caught off guard too. But I think because I usually don't talk to my mama like that, she knew something was wrong. So she comes into the dining room in the space where I'm at and she sits down and, I'm about to cry. I began to cry and I was like, I feel like I'm fighting battles that I'm not supposed to be fighting that you should have fought a long time ago. I've never said anything like that to myself. So I knew with that coming out, something was wrong. And my mom sat in the chair. She held my big grown self in her lap and she literally rocked me like a baby. And I remember crying and my body just went limp. And I've never experienced anything like that. So I knew something was wrong. As she rocked me, I don't remember what my mom said. I don't know if she had any words to give me at that moment, but I knew something was off. So we're in 2018. I just tell her this. I believe it was December of 2017. I tell her this. 2018 comes. Top of 2018, January, maybe top of February. I end up telling my family about being sexually assaulted as a little girl and on my 16th birthday. So after I tell my family about being assaulted, I get into therapy right away. That's one thing my mom was very big on, even as little kids. She's gung-ho for therapy, which I'm glad she is, because when it was time for me to go to therapy, I didn't see it as something that was weird. I was very open and receptive to it. So I get into therapy, and the first thing my therapist told me was, this is not physical, it's spiritual. When he told me that, it was just like something clicked. I didn't know what was about to happen. I didn't know what I was about to embark on, but it just felt like me opening up and letting out what was actually inside of me. And him saying that, it just made something click. Now, in the month of February of 2018, I ended up auditioning for Project Runway Season 17. This is when they were still on Lifetime. And I go through the audition process to wait to hear a call back. I get a call back saying you made it. Get a call back saying you're part of the top 16. No, I think it was top 20 at that time. And I'm like, okay. So I'm telling my job about it. My boss at the time, I was still working a 9 to 5. My boss at the time was very supportive. So she just told me, what do you need? And maybe about a couple weeks before it was time for me to go, I get a call back from the production company saying, Bravo Network just acquired the show from Lifetime. And the production company has changed. Everything has changed. We don't know what the process is going to be like. We do encourage you to audition again once they come back and let you know about the audition process. So I was like, huh. Now, I forgot to tell you this part. I'm going too fast. When I got the call back for Project Runway saying that I made it, surprisingly, y'all, I wasn't excited. Like, you know how you get really, really excited about something? I was not excited. I was melancholy. I was, something just wasn't quite connecting. Like, I thought it was depression, but it wasn't. Something just wasn't connecting when I got the call about Project Runway. So when it happened again, when they called me back to say that it wasn't ready, I was like, okay, that what changed with the network. I said, okay. So I auditioned again when the time came around. I didn't make it. And that felt like it was a straw that broke the camel's back to everything. And for the entire year of 2018, I got off social media, just stayed in therapy, stayed connected to my family, and I just cried. I cried. I allowed myself to feel. I didn't want to create anymore. But remember at the beginning of this video, I said, you see God's thumbprint in everything if you take a look. So I wanted to give up. I didn't want to do anything. I just said, you know what? I'm going to just figure out what it is I'm supposed to do. I'll do something else. I work with kids. I love kids. So that was just my mindset. Like, I was just going to change it all together. But it got to the point where I would go to bed at night and I would see sketches just come up in my dream. I would see it right before I'm trying to go to sleep. Just see different designs, from purses to clothes to jewelry to shoes. I would just write everything down, sketch it out. And I just kept crying because I'm like, God, this hurts. Because I don't know what to do. And I don't know who to call on to ask for advice. And I've never been in this space, and I don't know anybody who's been in this space. And I'm just confused. And I remember saying to God, if it's going to hurt this bad, don't let me wake up in the morning. I had those thoughts. And what's so funny, here's a God thumbprint. The next day, the next night, I was still living with my mom. Me and my brother was sharing a Jack and Jill bathroom at the time. And the next night for 3 months, every single day, my brother at night would come into my room after he did his thing in the bathroom and just talk to me. And we would just have conversations. And then after those 3 months were up, it was like right on time. One of my close girlfriends who lived in LA would call me every single day, and she would just ask me questions. And we would just talk. No one knew I prayed this. No one knew how I was feeling, but God knew. And he wouldn't let me sit down and stay in that. Then after those 3 months, another friend who was in LA would call and just tell me, I want you to be happy. So I'm going to tell you about a lot of happy things that's going on. And we would just laugh and we would talk. And after that moment, I began falling in love with writing. And I would just write. I would write how I felt. I would just write until I couldn't write anymore. Still sketching, not sewing again, but still sketching and still writing. 2019 comes around. Top of 2019 comes around. Still not on social media. Still not sewing. Still writing. Ended up publishing a book. Now, I don't promote that book. It is not the best of my writing skills. I've grown a lot. But didn't expect to write a book and ended up writing a book. Still wasn't sewing. Tried to sew a blazer, but I was still just afraid. And I remember my mom telling me, Jess, you're still acting as if your wings are clipped. And I need you to realize that your wings are no longer clipped. It's time to fly. But I was so scared because I'm like, I don't want God to say no to something. Not realizing it wasn't God saying no. It was you really didn't want it. And his no was just a confirmation that you really didn't want something. And it was also you had to heal. You had to open up to your family. You had to let go. And you had to heal from what was actually infecting you. And going through that process of healing, 2019 comes. I get into a church. I meet some group of people, met some great people I'm still friends with to this day. And I remember my grandma telling me, Smooch. She called me Smoochie. And my grandma was the one who actually bought me my first sewing machine. It was 2005. That same summer I said I wanted to be a designer. That Christmas, she bought me a sewing machine. Never used it. Never ever used it. So it's neither here nor there. But she planted the seed and she kept watering that seed. So shout out to my grandmama. She's no longer here, but shout out to my grandmama. But in 2019, I remember my grandma saying, Smooch, it's time to get back to sewing. And I was like, Grandma, I don't think I'm supposed to sew anymore. I think I'm supposed to be a writer. Child. So she would just look at me and just, And she would just look at me and let me talk. So shout out to the grandmothers out there, or the grandparents, who really like let their grandchildren just be themselves and just talk. And they just look at them and you already know the answer. So 2020 came and I slowly tried to get back into sewing, and that was during the pandemic. So I ended up doing masks, ended up selling them. I also sold t-shirts and hoodies, but I wasn't sewing the hoodies or the t-shirts. I think it was just something to do. But then I was like, I think I'm supposed to get back into sewing after my grandmother just told me that. So 2021 comes and I moved to Atlanta, from Florida to Atlanta, September of 2021. And I was like, I miss sewing. I want to sew. Like, I was in a safe space to heal. That same year I just lost my grandmother. I was crying. I was like still fearful, didn't know what was going on, but I knew things were coming together. I just couldn't see it because I still couldn't understand why I had went through what I just went through. It leads me somewhere. So 2021 comes, I connect with an old friend from Tallahassee. I make something for him, a suit, and I just felt that fire ignite again. And I'm like, we back on that thing. We in this again. So 2022 comes. That's when I start YouTube. That's when I make the prom dress. And I'm like, okay, t.a.l.a.y.a, we got it. We're in this. In 2022, I began using fabric I already have just to make clothes. I wasn't thinking about connecting with people and networking. I just knew I had to get back to this gift that I fell in love with. And not even just the gift. I had to get back to me. I had to stop hiding. I had to stop running away. I had to really sit still and lean into who I was becoming and get to know that person. And I was willing. At that time, by 2022, I was willing. So I ended up sewing this T.a.l.a.y.a extra. I ended up sewing this little white set. I ended up sewing this wrap dress because I just had fabric. And then I challenged myself. I said, I want to see what I can make in a week. That's how I began to fall in love with it. I didn't do it for anybody else. I didn't do it for likes. I did it because I knew I wanted to record the process and put it out there. But I also knew I just wanted to create. 2023 comes around and I ended up having a dream. I had a dream, and in that dream I was doing a collection. I was presenting a collection, and I woke up, I was getting ready for work, and I was sewing that day, making another YouTube video, and something just said, check your email. And I was like, as I'm checking my email, I'm like, I should make a collection. And then it was just like, ding. I get this email from this brand called Flying Solo. I think they're located in Europe and New York. And they're letting me know, hey, we're looking for designers to showcase in New York Fashion Week 2023. So I ended up putting together just a six look collection and drawing it up really quick. I had one day to submit all of my sketches. Drew it up, illustrated it, submitted it, and forgot about it. This was, I want to say, maybe late September, October of 2023? Was it 23? No. Yeah, I'm going too fast. This wasn't 2023. Was this 2022? Yes, this was 2022. My bad, y'all. So this was like in September, October of 2022. I forgot because it was for New York Fashion Week 2023. My bad, y'all, I'm going too fast. So I submit the sketches, forget about it. And then one night I'm going to bed and I'm checking my email on my phone, and That's when I get the email from the brand that says you've been selected as one of the designers for New York Fashion Week 2023. I get that same feeling that I was looking for in 2018 for Project Runway. I was excited. I put my phone down and I was getting anxious. I was like, okay, what should I do? How should I do this? And that moment helped me realize that God's thumbprints in my life weren't coincidental. They weren't accidental. It was on purpose for me to actually do life with Him and only with Him. And I heard a voice that said, walk by faith. I am with you. And I literally put the phone down and went to sleep. And the next morning I woke up, I called my mama and I said, girl, we going to New York Fashion Week. And I sent her the email. She got excited. Hung up on my mama, called my auntie. Girl, we going to New York Fashion Week. She got excited. Told my family in the group chat, told my daddy, told my friends. And them same two friends who helped me in 2018 to get through that depression were the same two friends who showed up for me in New York Fashion Week, just to support and also help me in a process that I didn't know what I was getting into, okay? I was nervous. I was excited. I felt like I had been away from it for so long, and to get back into it, I'm like, okay, this is really happening. And so I say all of that to say, don't question God's timing. I think it's a process. It's a process. And some of the things I've encountered at 17, 18, living in LA, interning, doing fashion shows then, a part of the Macy's fashion show. Like, I had a lot of great opportunities to get to New York Fashion Week. That in-between process of healing, my character was built, my faith was built, my identity was built, my creativity went to an entire new level that I didn't expect. I developed a new skill in writing. I became confident in my speaking. I became confident in being in front of the camera. Don't deny your process. Maybe this is what I need to talk about. Don't deny your process. You may not understand it while you're in it, but if you submit to it and you surrender to it, God will blow your mind if you let Him. He will blow your mind if you let Him. I didn't think I would be a person that would lead with my faith, because I was so hell-bent on fashion being my identity. But going through that process of development, and I would more so say healing and purging, I'm confident to lead with my faith. Because, baby, how the old folks say it, I don't know if y'all churchy, a little churchy like me, but how the old folks say it, if it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, where would I be? Baby, if it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, y'all wouldn't have no YouTube. Y'all wouldn't have some Thoughtful Tuesday videos. Y'all wouldn't have the clothes that I designed. Y'all probably wouldn't even have this testimony. Because I would still be trying to force things and be sick and operating in functional depression. So, if you stayed until the end, I hope you got something from this. I don't even know if the gist of me telling you this was to tell you to trust the process. I don't know if it was just me supposed to share my testimony with y'all. I'm gonna just leave it at that. Maybe I was just supposed to share my testimony with y'all. If you want to know some more stuff, comment below, or if not, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting me. I think we're at 790 subscribers. I've been consistent in the past year in 2024. Your girl out here being consistent. And yeah, there's so much more coming. And I think I'm just open and trusting that process and going with the flow. That's all I got.